Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock, so we'll kick off the meeting on time so that everyone can get back to their busy days. So firstly, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's Kinetics webinar and taking some time out of your busy schedules. I'm Matt Patterson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Kinetics, and later I'll be joined by Jason Elliott, who is one of our Cambium advisors. The topic for today's webinar is Protect Your Business from the Current Surge in Ransomware Attacks, which actually obviously had some resonance with the invitees, with the number of people registered for this seminar. Some of the objectives from a high level that I wanted to go through with this seminar today is to firstly inform and educate you on this topic. I want to stress the importance of empowering your people. I think I've got a feedback here.
Yes, that you do.
Right, is that better? Could I get people to mute their microphones, please? Want to stress the importance of empowering your people. Also want to give some practical solutions for how you can act in these challenging times, and also give you an overview of the Kinetics cybersecurity services. So just moving into the agenda, I'll be covering the first part of the agenda, which will cover the global, local and regulatory impact of cybercrime, and what are small, medium businesses doing to prepare for the current situation that we have, and how can Kinetics help with that. Then we'll go into a session with Jason, who will focus on cybersecurity awareness, particularly around educating and informing your people. That's a key aspect of how we actually cater to our customers' security needs. And a little bit of housekeeping. I have muted the microphones now. You can unmute to ask questions in the Q&A session afterwards. Please feel free to use the chat in Teams to ask any questions, and our head of sales, Tim Alinsky, can answer those questions as we go, or we can bring them up as a topic to cover at the end. We'll also be recording this session so that you can get access to it afterwards if you would like to play it to your teams. And we'll post a copy of this presentation for your reference. So look, I wanted to really reiterate that the stakes as far as the global impact of cybercrime are almost mind-boggling. There's various different reports that you pick up from global industry bodies that are talking about an annual impact of $600 billion to $1.5 trillion a year. And we're seeing the impacts across a range of different illicit and illegal areas. So $860 billion for online markets, $500 billion for theft of trade secrets and theft of IP. 160 billion for data trading, so of the hacking that's going on, selling that data to other interested parties. 1.6 billion for crimeware as a service, and I'll talk a little bit later about this, as how this has been enabled, but it really is a marketplace out there that is live and active. And then the final topic, which is 1 billion in ransomware. So as you can see, the stakes are massive, and from the perspective of the New Zealand market, how does that translate? Well, you've seen the New Zealand cybersecurity landscape, even in the last month, come up with some pretty shocking headlines. Off the back of obviously the situation with COVID-19, there's been no rest for the wicked, and obviously the hackers have been really active out in the marketplace. And in fact, warnings coming from the likes of CERT-NZ are saying beware, be vigilant, and be warned. We've seen obviously significant businesses like Lion Nathan be hit by ransomware actions. The impacts for those businesses, not only stopping production, but also the ongoing cleanup of those things and the reputational risk that it entails. Fisher & Parker Appliances are another name brand that have been hit by this ransomware scourge. And I bring up these brands just as a note point, because these are large New Zealand companies. These are not necessarily small, medium business companies, which are typical of Kinetics customers. If these large organizations are being hit, who have significant, large IT departments that are focused on security, the threat is very real for small, medium enterprises that Kinetics supports, like you. So this is very much an awareness to say, don't think it can't happen to you. If it can happen to larger organisations, this part of the market is being targeted. And then we look at the New Zealand regulatory landscape. We've got the Privacy Bill and the amendments to come into effect on 1st of December 2020, introducing some of the most significant changes in the privacy space, and very much being dragged into the current. And many are saying that once it's put in place, it could actually be behind where the current requirements are from a privacy perspective. So you've got some mandatory breach reporting, which will become prevalent for all businesses that are impacted by cybercrime. Restrictions on offshore transfers of personal information. We're seeing foreign geographies with very strict information and privacy statements and regulatory impact that could hit businesses in the pocket. And also clarifications on extraterritorial scope of the Privacy Act. And I suppose one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, well, how have we gotten to this position? And there's been a certain shift over time that you need to be made aware of, and you're probably already familiar with, but it's good to give a bit of a recap. Firstly, did marketing have the right intentions with using email when it became prevalent to actually get out there and share information? Because like all of these things, they're created for the right reasons, but where hackers and people with evil intent come in, they can be subverted into different means. So what we've seen is obviously, hackers taking advantage of, troublesome, disruptive, and sometimes massively impacting a denial of service attacks and the likes, which can actually really increase the impact on your business, and you need to protect yourself for. Next, we look at the pervasion of the dark web. Dark web came into existence because of a desire to protect privacy, but we've seen plenty of examples here. There's a system called Tor, which is actually designed to disguise who you are, where you are, and so that the likes of your school, your employer, your government can't see what you're doing. And then if you add in an ability to then transact in a very private and non-recognizable way with cryptocurrencies, you've actually got an ideal scenario where you can hide your identity, you can actually transact, you can actually have a marketplace in the background that is completely transparent. And from this environment, we then generated the defining moment, which finds us where we are now, the introduction of CryptoLocker and ransomware. So you can see Shrek here. He's obviously trying to hide behind this veil. When you peel back the onion layers, he's still an ogre. So when we do get to this stage where ransomware is more and more prevalent in our marketplace, does this mean that ransomware equals extortion? So the concept that works perfectly in an existing business model, which is organized crime, to make it work, organized crime needed new talent, and the investment that organized crime is making and state-sponsored organizations are making to move into this field are worth the risk, and the rewards are there. So they're massively investing in qualified people to be able to run these ransomware attacks. They're massively investing in call centers and the likes to be able to do social hacking and to be able to get access to your information. So the cost of recovery for the effort that they're putting in is a really good return, and there is very little that global organizations from a law and order perspective can do to curtail it. So what are we seeing off the back of this? We're seeing the three leading strains of ransomware becoming more and more prevalent in our day-to-day business lives. 66% of MSPs report, now MSPs being managed service providers like ourselves. So I've taken this information from our partners Datto, who went out on a research report and looked at what are the most prevalent ransomware attacks. So CryptoLocker is number one at 66% of the MSPs reporting this. 49% has been identified as WannaCry, and 34% in CryptoWar. Now, all of these things are things that we're coming across on a regular basis. And so we actually have to look at the way in which we can protect our business as Kinetics, but also our customers' business. And we rely very heavily on a framework called NIST. Now, NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a framework that Kinetics follows internally and with its customers. And as you can see here, it has a focus on identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And in a 2019 survey of small, medium businesses, based on 1,000 risk assessments across small, medium businesses in Australia and New Zealand, it was identified that 69% of those small, medium businesses have not identified and documented cybersecurity threats. 66% have not identified and documented any vulnerabilities. 57% have not informed and trained users on cybersecurity. 48% have not analysed cybersecurity attacks, targets, and methods. And 48% haven't analysed, sorry, I got interrupted there. 48% do not have a response plan in place, and 43% do not have a plan, recovery plan for a cybersecurity incident. Now, as a small, medium business, if you're working with a managed service provider like us, this is a primary area in which we can help. But when you look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, it's important to understand that it's a layered approach. And what I'm going to take you through now is the way in which our advisory services can help you protect your people and keep them informed of those cybersecurity risks and the opportunities to educate them. So I'm going to hand that over now to Jason Elliott, and he can take us through the next part of the presentation. Jason.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Matt. Have you given me control?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, good morning. I'm Jason. I've been a Cambian advisor for the last couple of years, but been at Kinetics for just on 6 years now. I've been in IT for a very long time, since I left school, and that was quite a while ago. And one of the things that have been consistent since my introduction to IT is that there have always been threats or people trying to steal something that doesn't belong to them from businesses or from individuals themselves. Now, I know that you've seen, I didn't get control, Matt.
Sorry about that. There you go.
Thank you. Now, I know that we've seen a lot of figures this morning, and Matt's concentrated on the business level of those figures. And what I'm going to try and do over the next couple of slides is bring that back to a more personal level, so an individual user or staff member level, and show you how prevalent some of these cyber attacks are and how widespread they are. So in May 2000, an organization called IC3 was established as a center to receive complaints of internet crime from individuals. And since then, a total of around 4.88 million complaints have been laid and reported since May 2000. And over the last 5 years, as displayed on here, on average, 304,000 complaints a year have been laid. These address a wide range of complaints, and I'll show you in a couple of slides across the globe. And as you can see, the dollar figures at the bottom here, the impact is relatively high. Now, not all crimes reported to IC3 have had their age range captured. But in 2019, the ones that did have their age range captured, I wanted to show you that the criminals aren't selective or discriminative in terms of who they attack. You can see in the age range between the 20s and the 40s that the attacks are lower, and also the dollar values of the loss is lower. And if we look above that, above 60s, you'll see that the actual dollar value of the impact of these crimes is relatively high. So again, widespread across all the age ranges. In terms of personal approaches, no one's outside of their remit. Now, while ransomware, as Matt has displayed, makes the headlines and sometimes makes the front page of the newspaper, you can see on this chart that ransomware is just one of the many types of approaches that criminals are using. And it's actually quite low on the scale. It's quite low on the scale in terms of the victims that the crimes are attacking. The stuff that doesn't make the news is the phishing and the extortions and the identity thefts. And as you can see by the numbers here, those are really, really prevalent. A recent survey indicated that almost 5.4 million hours in New Zealand was spent on resolving issues as a result of cyber criminals. So the working life for professionals has obviously changed over the last few months, and along with that, so has the cyber threat landscape. Execs within businesses now face the challenges of keeping up with keeping people's equipment and data safe, and that's outside of the confines of the four walls of their business. So every employee-owned device, every third-party network that's being used to connect back in remotely becomes a new avenue for attack that's being exploited by these criminals, and they are opportunistic in their nature. So according to cybersecurity officials, cybercrimes tripled during the coronavirus pandemic. Many crimes have taken the form of what's known as money mule schemes, which trick people into moving stolen money in order to hide it from law enforcement. So money mule schemes are frequently disguised as charity groups. And this is just one of the many new advancements in terms of how criminals are attacking individuals and businesses. So what we're saying is staff should understand the cybersecurity risk out there. A security awareness campaign is probably the best way to get this knowledge across. And they should understand why security is important, as well as what the business is doing to keep them safe in terms of protecting their devices and protecting their access. And then they also need to understand what this means for them and what they need to do. So when we deliver a security campaign, we educate on how to manage and protect their passwords, how to keep themselves safe and secure, and identify those phishing attempts and those scam emails that they receive daily. We also go through and teach them around social engineering and how to be safe online, what to protect themselves from, and what information to keep secure and safe, as well as looking at the data that they've got access to and the protection of that. And if something does happen, how we can remove that risk and destroy that data. We also have a look at educating them on how to keep their PCs, laptops, and tablets safe. In terms of the work supplied devices, business supplied devices, the MSP that's looking after you should be taking care of that. But we're also giving access now to individual users on their personal laptops from home. So we educate them on that as well. And then more importantly is, how do we react when something happens? As Matt alluded to in one of the previous slides, the cyber privacy rules are going to be changing very soon. And part of that is the notification process that you have to run through when a breach has happened. And it's about how do we react and have an incident management response program around that. So I'm just going to run you through very briefly a couple of slides that we would use typically within our security campaigns. And first of all, we'll have a look at how do we protect our password. Well, obviously, we don't want to give it away too easily. So we're telling people not to write it down. And we've seen some really inventive ways of noting this down. And as Matt alluded to a little bit earlier on, security is about layers. So if you do have all your passwords on the back page of a notepad, don't leave it open on your desk. That gives someone easy access to it. And in terms of thinking of layers, can we hide that notepad inside a drawer? Can it be hidden? We've introduced 3 different layers that a criminal or someone in your office trying to gain access to an account has to go through. So look after those passwords, don't write them down. We're also recommending that personal information about you is not included in any of your passwords. Try and make the passwords fake. Don't use real words, and where possible, try and use longer passwords that include phrases. So pick something in your office that doesn't make sense to anybody, but is really in your eye line and makes sense to you. What we're trying to say as well is don't use the same passwords on different accounts. Try use different passwords on different accounts. And we understand that there are so many passwords nowadays that that's almost impossible to do without, say, a password safe or a password vault. But if you break your password strategies up into, say, 3, so your personal life, your business life, and then your social life, you can keep 3 different sets of passwords where there's no correlation between them. So a hacker getting into, say, your work account will find it really difficult to break the password on your bank account. Where possible, we're going across businesses and we're enabling multi-factor authentication. People who have had online bank accounts have used this for decades, but there seems to be some hesitation to turn it on in terms of really access email accounts and your online access, but we're going across many organizations now, and where possible, finding the solution to turn on multi-factor and protect it. This is the area that we've seen the most activity in 18 months, 2 years, and that's the social engineering side of things. So there's many ways that that people approach you, and there's many formats of approaches, and we're saying, try not take the bait. Trust nothing, rather question everything. So in terms of all of these keywords, they're all different methods of approaching you. Baiting is obviously an advert that is a misleading headline and entices you to click through and click on something. And in the background, the web page that you land on might be installing a keylogger to try and get one of your passwords. Phishing is obviously when people approach you and try and harvest some information from you. Spear phishing is the next level, where they already know a whole bunch of information about you. They might know which department you work for. They might know who you report to, and they might also know the fact that the person that you report to is away on a conference. Whaling is the next level, and they are looking at the execs. Vishing is involving voice and video, and brandjacking is where they try and pretend that they are your business and transact on your behalf. We recently had an incident where the email trail went back several months, 9 months, and an order was placed purporting to be the business of a company in Europe, and the transaction happened, and the goods got delivered, and it was only after 60 days when the company in Europe started chasing the invoice, that it came to light that they had been brandjacked. So very important that people are aware of how those approaches happen. In terms of the sources, consider them carefully. Are they known to you, trusted, regular? Does something look out of sort? You get the odd friend request that comes from someone that you know, but you're already friends with them, or the content that they've sent to you via a messenger chat is completely out of line with the person that you know. Again, don't take the bait, trust nothing. Maybe pick up the phone or contact the person via different means and consider that approach carefully. One thing they'll try and do is hurry you along and make it urgent. Try and slow down, challenge them repeatedly. Why are you sending me this invoice? Why am I receiving this approach? Can you give me a number and I'll ring you back? I literally had a phone call from an Australian number 15 minutes before the seminar started. And they asked me to confirm my name, which I did. And then they said, was I interested in financial investments? I asked them clearly where they received my contact details from. And they said, oh, we've bought your number from an online service portal. So I hung up. It was obviously going to be a financial span, and I just hung up. So challenge them as much as you can. The biggest thing that we want to talk to people about in terms of social engineering is the personal information that they are placing online. So we've all responded over time to those funny quizzes that come online about your favorite dog and your favorite color, and your stripper name might be your mother's maiden name plus your current street. And we answer those questions. But have a think about the challenge questions that you get asked if you reset your bank account. So those might be the same answers that you've just given away online during these quizzes. And that's how these, and we don't call them hackers anymore. I think they're almost detectives now, the way they go through. And they analyze your online activity, and they analyze your friends, and they look at the answers that you give to these questions. And once they've got an access to one single email address, then they go through and say, take over your profile, and then try to get into your bank accounts. So we talk to individuals about being very careful about the amount of information that they are putting online. And as Matt alluded to, we have to say, always assume that you're being targeted. It's not an embarrassment to be approached or to click on something, but the more we are aware of it and the more we assume that we are being targeted, the more we will notice and bypass. So in terms of, we've protected our passwords, and now we have received some of these emails. We're asking you again to stop, think, and check. Why am I receiving this? I don't deal with this person. This is not my department. We've never been invoiced this manner. It's the 6th of the month. We only ever receive invoices on the 30th. All of those questions. And we say, once you've received the emails, the power of hover actually gives away a lot of information. So if you hover over an email address, it might say Bob Smith, but you see that it comes from support@bobjones.com, then you know that you might not be dealing with the person that they are pretending to be. Any links within a document, if you hover over the link, it's very easy to hijack that link and send you off to a website that isn't what it is meant to be. So again, try not open attachments until you've checked those things. Is this person a known user? Does the name and the email address make sense? Is it something similar? So could it be netflix.ru instead of netflix.com? Those types of things. Were you expecting that email? We always say as well, try and break the chain of contact. So if a person rings and says, I need to speak to you now about an invoice, or I need to speak to the CFO about an invoice, ask for a number and ask to ring them back. Quite invariably, that results in a hang-up. If it's an email chain, we often see the hacker sitting inside the email account waiting for an answer. So you'll receive an email going, is this, can you pay this PDF, this invoice today, with a PDF attachment, and your reply going, hey Jane, is this real? And the hacker's still sitting in the account, and he's going to reply going, of course it is, can you pay it now? So again, break that chain, maybe pick up the phone, ring the company, and follow up on those details where possible. We are seeing an increase in the unsubscribe links, and quite a few people are falling for these. They think that they are unsubscribing from a spam email, but you end up on a landing page that is malicious anyway and still tries to install something in the background. So try and avoid those at the bottom of what you've identified as spam emails. If in doubt, chuck it out. Just a slogan to keep to yourself. Don't open it, just delete it. So in terms of working from home, how can we reduce the risk a little bit? Well, where possible, try and use your company device or computer. So something that's been issued to you by the company probably has up-to-date patching, probably has up-to-date AV, so is nice and safe. Using your company computer, try and keep that away from the kids and the relatives, and try and keep that information secure. If you are using your own personal computer, then don't save work information on your personal device, and try and prevent other family members from using that device if it is your only means to work from home. It's really important as well for you to make sure that your personal antivirus and your patching is kept up to date. Try and install those security updates as often as possible when they pop up. And one of the big things to remember is that the security patches and the security updates don't install fully unless you reboot your machines. The actual installing of the patches while you're working can be done silently, but it's only a small percentage of what needs to happen. So please reboot those machines and make sure you do that often. Again, the hackers or the perpetrators or the criminals will try and create a little bit of panic within the environment to make you act quicker and catch you off guard. So be wary of those claims of urgency. You know, we will cut off your subscription if you don't do this. The email that goes around that scares everybody is the Netflix account. Again, you know, it's just because we use it often, it's part of our lives. We probably wouldn't exist without it. Therefore, if it gets cut off, panic. So we're going to click on that and try and go through. And those other hurry up, this is a limited offer. Those are often clickbaits that take you through to malicious content inside the advert or on the page that you land on. And again, you know, you receive that phone call, your senior partner said that you have to do this today. I know he's on conference. I can't get a hold of him now. He's in Japan. It's out of our time zone, but I spoke to him yesterday and we want this invoice done and cleared urgently. So those types of things, those should all be triggers for you. Take a step back, break that chain, try and have another conversation with your management or your partner, and ask for a number and see if you can call them back. In terms of what happens once we have clicked on something or we think we've landed on a page or we've accidentally logged into Dropbox and given away our Office 365 email account, well then the quicker you can let IT know, the better. The more chance and the more time we've got to resolve the incident, the better. So it's not an embarrassment. Put your hand up, let management know, let your IT department know as soon as possible. Where possible, try and unpower the device. So if it's a desktop, pull the power cable out or the network cable out. One of the first things that these malicious pieces of code do is try and talk back to the hacker and let them know that they have someone on the line. So the sooner we can break that connection, the better. Just remember though, if you're working off of a laptop or a tablet and it's docked, it might be connected to the network via a hardwired cable, but the moment you undock it, invariably it switches to Wi-Fi, therefore still connected. So either put the device in flight mode or hold the power button down for 6 to 8 seconds and fully power off the device. Then put your hand up and report it as soon as you can. If you feel that you have clicked on something or given away a password, try change those as quick as possible. You know, you might have clicked on a fake TradeMe account, email, change that password as quick as you can. It happens through your social media as well. Try and change those as quick as possible. The one thing that you have to do is tell everybody within your team they could be next. And again, the quicker you report something lost or stolen, the more chances we've got at either wiping the device, locking out accounts, or keeping information secure. Again, don't be embarrassed. Matt and myself have both said now that you have to assume that you're going to be targeted at some stage. If you haven't yet, it's going to happen, and it happens to everybody. So the more noise you make about it, the more you share the information, the better it is for your business, your home, and your family. Thank you, Matt. Over to you.
Look, that's great, Jason, and probably what everyone on the call is actually hearing is, I suppose, an excerpt. What Jason delivered is for our Care for Security customers. We have as part of that an educational briefing service where we come out regularly and take your teams through that type of briefing. And you can put that all on a PowerPoint presentation, but it's great to hear from Jason, who's got 20 years experience, the practical insights that come from that information, and keeping your people informed is where the real power of empowering your people come from. So look, I said at the outset of the meeting, one of the things that I'd like to be able to portray to you as an objective of today is to, what you can do to protect your business, and the inform and the educate part of it, which Jason has just gone through, is a key component of that. But we should also talk about how we actually work with you to identify those threats and vulnerabilities, because that's a great starting point, and I've got an offering which will certainly help with that as a one-off consulting engagement. How do we help you protect and educate your people? How do we detect things by understanding the targets and the methods by which your people trying to get your information will use? And do you have a response plan, and do you have a recovery plan? And that's certainly where Kinetics comes into this mix. So, Kinetics is a managed and professional services business, and in every aspect that we engage with you, you rely on us to keep our lights on. And we talk about a layered approach, not only to security, but into the way in which we provide services. And if we look at the base layers that we have here, from an IT support perspective, many of you will be familiar with our care managed service offering, whether that be premium care, which is our top level service, or whether that be core fundamentals or ready reaction. That base layer is a really important starting point from where Kinetics can provide services. We layer on top of that a security layer as part of delivering premium care and core fundamentals. And then what we have to enhance that, I suppose, our relationship is lifting you into the professional services space, and that is IT management. And IT management is a core deliverable of what Jason does. As an example, we've got a number of IT manager as a service advisors within our business who can deliver that. And we also offer this fantastic service around adoption and change management. So that's not only taking the practical ways in which your users, your staff actually use the applications that they have, but create a culture of change within your business to really get productivity gains out of those applications. So if that's the core service, and I want to sort of educate you on what the next steps are with regards to security, let's have a look at that in a bit more detail. So core fundamentals and premium care as base layers for what we deliver give you managed antivirus, managed patching, which is Windows Office and common software, and also managed backup. But what you want to then layer over it above that is, I suppose, our premium offering for security, which is called Care for Security. And that adds a whole another layers of protection around URL protection, advanced email threat protection, phishing, rights exception alerts, advanced deep scan, and more. So what I thought I'd talk you through is also, how do you actually start? If you haven't actually engaged with us on Care for Security, what's a way that you can get a current state view of where your organization is sitting? And I think a lot of you, after what you've just heard from myself and Jason, will be interested to know that point. Well, let's start with the Care for Security Review. And the Care for Security Review is a new service that we'd like to take you through briefly now. So this very much talks to the NIST Framework, where it says identify. A Care Security Review will help you identify, review your business through a cybersecurity lens. It's really important for you to look at what those threats and vulnerabilities are, to document them, and to make sure that you actually have a plan to address them. So the way that we do that is with a structured review, and that's an interview with key stakeholders within your business. There's approximately 50 key questions that we go through, which are a mixture of business and technical questions. And the interview with you on your site and with your key stakeholders takes about 90 minutes. We then record all of those outputs and understand and document those threats and vulnerabilities. And then we can work with you to sort of discover a way to leverage the best cybersecurity strategies for your business, and then create a recommendation document that actually talks about how we recommend that you address those key areas. So that's a key offering from Kinetics that actually goes into a number of key areas. Some examples of which you can see on the slide here. We cover the likes of access policies, security group usage, PC encryption, data on unmanaged and managed devices, penetration testing, etc., etc. And as this is a point-in-time, one-off engagement, we have got a special for today's webinar where you can actually get this report produced in the manner I've just described for $1,500 ex GST. And I would encourage you after this session to actually talk to your account manager. So that next layer, so the Care Security Review, as I said, is a one-off consulting engagement, which will give you that snapshot of where you currently are and give you a plan as to how to address it. For ongoing business, though, we have the Care for Security service. And this, as I said, is our premier service. So across the key areas, which you can see here, educating your staff, your biggest risk, making sure that they are brought up to speed and armed with information so that when social hacking comes, so that when people are actually targeting them in I suppose, known ways, they're at least able to deploy some of those tactics that Jason talked about. You know, delay the response, make sure you ask lots of questions, shut down things that you think are at risk. The next key part of Care for Security is ongoing phishing tests. And think of it like a fire drill for IT. And it's basically making sure that people are being tested, the feedback of which can then be measured, and then further education can be made as to how they responded to certain threats. From a website perspective, we've got to prevent visits from dodgy websites, and that's really important. And I'll talk a little bit about the tools that we actually use for that in the next slide. We've got to make sure that we keep your email environment safe by ensuring attachments are actually being scanned and dealt with before you open them. And then deep scan monitoring, and that's for monitored protection to enhance a layer of antivirus protection for your business. Now, this is all core offerings that Care for Security brings to the table over and above your standard premium care or core fundamental service. And we take a look, we review, I suppose, our Care for Security offering from that balance between risk and expense. So if you look at the base care offerings where I mentioned managed antivirus, managed patching, etc., that you get from core fundamentals or premium care already, we layer above that this extra layer of protection. If you wanted to go to the extreme end of this marketplace, you could actually put a custom solution together, but it's a cost, risk, and reward exercise. So we're very much sitting with Care for Security in that B layer that you can see there. Now, what does that give you from the perspective of our firewall protection, the services and the tools that we put in place, as well as combined with governance across making sure that these things are happening on a regular basis, but also the education that we give for your users. So there's these common things which are core deliverables: the intrusion prevention, URL filtering, gateway antivirus, reputation-based threat protection, spam prevention, application control, and also the APT blocker, which is like a secret sauce for making sure that it's preventative defense against the likes of ransomware attacks. So also with Care for Security, it's important to note that we have a premier advisory service here we call Flight Plan. And if you sign up to Care for Security over and above your premium care or core fundamentals current offering, you will actually get an annual flight plan included in your service cost. And what does that do? That's taking a helicopter view of your business, where we actually do a review of what your business goals are and making sure that we've got a good alignment with business goals and IT strategy. We then work with you to sort of reimagine what the combination of those two things coming together could produce for your business, and then the output of which is a remapped view and a roadmap for you to be able to execute against those defined changes. You may ask, why do we actually include a flight plan in Care for Security? Because we fundamentally believe that if you get the planning around your security and your business alignment right, actually security can be a competitive differentiator for you in the marketplace, just as much as IT can become a differentiator for you to hit those big goals in your business. So we think it's a key part of what we can offer to enhance our relationship with you. So the final point here that I would raise on Care for Security is that we've got a webinar offer, which will run out to the end of August. And if you sign up to our Care for Security service, you'll actually get 50% off the setup fee between now and the end of August. So I would encourage you to contact your account manager and take us up on this offer. So the next thing that I will just say before we go to any Q&A is Kinetics is really vigilant and motivated to continue ongoing education of our customers. And one of the ways that we do that is by our regular newsletters. But we also then post any of the articles that we put related to cyber security and cyber threats on our website. And I've included here in this presentation some links to actually some cybersecurity updates that we've done in those on those regular newsletters only in the last 6 months. So there's a lot of relevant and up-to-date information there that I would encourage you to talk to. And then the last thing that I will do is really just open it up to the floor. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to try and address that for you.
Hey, thanks very much, Matt. Tim Linsky here. I have a question regarding the special offer. If I was a client looking at that Care Security review, you've mentioned 3 discrete steps in the process. One's a 90-minute interview from which we record the outputs and document and present a report back.
Yes.
Can you give us some context around how long that piece of string might be in terms of an end-to-end exercise for a given business?
So the interview itself is obviously only a piece of the puzzle, and that's where we're actually collecting information from the key stakeholders within your company. Those questions are actually designed to focus on business and IT related aspects of the cybersecurity subject. And once we've actually done that interview process, then we go back and prepare a report which actually addresses perhaps identified gaps in some of the answers that have been given, and then defines some specific actionable recommendations that can be made that will go into the document. So the end-to-end is probably we could probably produce something like that in about a week.
Champion, thank you. Hey, I have no formal questions that have come through from the floor, but I would say we've got some 43 people in attendance today. So if anyone does have any particular questions, it's not convenient or suitable to ask them right now, please feel free to reach out to us directly via your account manager or through this forum on the chat channel before we close off. Back at you, Matt.
Great. Good question, by the way, Bill. So look, if there's no further questions, as I said, we're recording this session. We've got copies of the presentation itself. And please reach out to your account managers if you've got any follow-up questions or want to take us up on those offers. I'd just like to say thank you for your time today. Really good to see people attending these sessions, and we plan to run these on a monthly basis, so look forward to future topics. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, Matt, where can people get a copy of the presentation? From the account manager?
So what we could do is actually just save it in the chat. So basically it should be available to you via the chat session in this Teams meeting. If that doesn't work for you, our account management team can send you a copy.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.